Welcome back to another week of Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. I am Ryan Drury. That is Clarkey in a beautiful locale. We'll get to that in a second. But first, as always, we're brought to you by our friends at Coolbet Canada, our friends over at the Listowel Squash Courts and Listowel Vision Care, and See the Game. Mr. Clark, you are in a very comfortable looking locale. Tell us all about it, sir. You picked a great time to go on holiday, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah? Well, it's nice here. I'm telling you. It's about 28 degrees and sunny. Had a little shower this morning. So I'm down here with a few friends. We're golfing for the week. And I thought when it started raining this morning that we were in trouble. But then about 15 minutes later, the sun was shining and it shot up to about 28 degrees. So I'm in Punta Cana at the Barcelo Resort. And yes, I would say it's beautiful, as you can see from the pond behind me.
It certainly looks that way. We'll hope that your internet holds out here. But yeah, there's obviously a lot going on in the sports world and the world in general right now. I mean, I guess we could start with your Maple Leafs if that's where you want to start. We'll, of course, be chatting with Dark Guy later, our friend. Yeah, not a great little stretch of play here for the Maple Leafs, and really a lot of attention falling on the goaltending lately, Clarkey.
Yeah, I would say it should. They haven't been good. Neither of them have been good. Jack Campbell has lost his confidence. There's no question about that. And it concerns me, Ryan, that he's always outspoken after games, blame degree, but he's putting way too much pressure on himself. The team's got to get better as a whole. And the goaltending's got to get better. There's no question about it. I mean, the game against Columbus, I saw, weak goal here, weak goal there. And, Bob, no question. Am I concerned? Yeah, I'm concerned. They got to do something. And I think they're going to make a big splash, and it's going to be within the next week or so.
Yeah, conventional wisdom would certainly suggest that. Obviously, they get Lyubushkin in a trade. Dzingel was picked up on waivers, the other part of that trade by San Jose. And then, of course, they get Carter Hutton, which definitely raised some people's eyebrows, another goaltender. But I think that was more just a depth move because their goaltending hasn't exactly been stellar in the AHL either. But yeah, and the rest of the team's got to take a bit of account for this too, Clarkey. And recently, Captain John Tavares and really that line featuring William Nylander and a revolving cast of characters, they've come under fire recently for some poor play, and which is odd because Clarkey, I mean, you'd know better than me. In the time that John Tavares has been a Leaf and certainly the captain, he has really largely escaped a lot of criticism, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he doesn't look good. He's gone. Well, I can't remember how many games. Sorry if you mentioned, you might have just cut out on me, but he's struggling skating right now. He doesn't seem like he's keeping up with the rest of the guys, and that's what worries me. Is he hurt? I don't think so. Is he older? Yeah, he's older, but he should be able to keep up with those guys, and that's where I see the trade maybe happening. Someone to go along with Nylander and Tavares on that line. Kerfoot's a good, trooper. He's not a second-line player, and they got to upgrade there, and then they need one or two defensemen. I think there's 3 trades they got to make. But good luck.
Well, you're right. I mean, good luck because, yeah, as we know, as everyone knows, the Leafs cap situation is, well, it is what it is, isn't it? A lot of rumors floating around, and our buddy Elliot Friedman, we'll have to bug him at some point around trade deadline. You may be too busy around then, but he floated out the other night on the broadcast that, well, we all know JT Miller is being sniffed at by a few teams. I think the Rangers make a lot of sense there. I know the Wild are sniffing around at another forward. Breaking news today as well. The Nashville Predators are apparently shopping around Philip Forsberg. Last year of his deal, he only makes $6 million. Would Nashville retain there? But JT Miller, another attractive option there. And Fried said that the Leafs could potentially be targeting him. Is that the type of target you would want to see in a Leaf uniform?
Yeah, anything that could improve that top 6 for sure. He's the kind of guy, absolutely. With the Muzzin injury, I've been sort of out of touch. I don't know if there is an update on Muzzin, but if he is out, is there an update, Ryan?
So right now, all we know is that he is out indefinitely. And
Right.
there are rumors that he's probably not going to be able to come back before the playoffs. I mean, a second concussion in a row. It's not looking good. They haven't placed him officially on LTIR yet. He's on LTI, long-term injury, but they haven't put him on LTIR yet. I imagine they will, though, Clarkey. So continue from there.
Yeah, so if they do, there's some salary cap space they have. And I totally agree with you. I think he'll go on for the rest of the regular season, and that'll open up some spots, right? Like, he's not going to end up on Robidas Island, I think, but he could end up on, who was it? Kucherov Island, I guess. Didn't Tampa Bay do that last year? Kept him
Yes.
out until the playoffs. So that's the island I think he might be on right now. And it was a scary thing. Like, yeah, he just came off a concussion. He hits his head again. Another freak accident. What's with the freak head injuries when you play the Habs? Anyway, I think that will open up some space, and they got it. This is Dubas. This is where Dubas has got to make his money right here, no question.
I completely agree. This is an area where Kyle Dubas has not been afraid to shuffle things around, certainly, and he can wheel and deal. I certainly think that the Leafs are going to want to do everything they can to hold on to draft picks. They still have their first and second round pick this year. I'm willing to bet, probably, given what happened with the Marleau deal and stuff like that, that they're going to want to retain as many draft picks as they can, certainly. But I think that, the guys on Overdrive said it best the other day. I think it was Hayes that kind of brought it up and said, the Leafs, like this group here, they're not thinking about what Pittsburgh was a few years back where, hey, we could keep this core together and win 1, 2, 3, who knows how many cups. They're all in on just getting that one. They just want to desperately win that one cup that's eluded them for a long time. I don't need to say the year. And I mean, if it involves a draft pick going the other way to potentially get a guy like a JT Miller, maybe a Philip Forsberg. I don't really know that the Leafs need a guy like that, but he's apparently being floated out there for some reason. I don't know why Nashville doesn't want to re-sign him. We know Kyle will probably go after that. And yeah, they could really use a defenseman too, Clarkey. And I mean, if personally, from the outside looking in, if they do put Muzzin on LTIR, which I bet will happen, I would rather them go out and try and get a guy like John Klingberg. I really would. I think that would do their roster a lot more good than another forward that they don't really need. Like, is JT Miller a gritty guy that can mix it up and add a different dimension than a guy like William Nylander, who, while talented, isn't the most gritty guy? Yeah, sure, he could. I don't think the Leafs need that. They need some help on that back end. And I would rather them go after a guy like John Klingberg. And if Muzzin's on LTIR, they could basically fit Klingberg into their cap without having to ask Dallas to retain anything. And that would probably help them not have to move a draft pick, Clarkey.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's so many ebbs and flows in the season, right? Right now, they're in a little bit of a dip. They've played some terrific hockey. They had a terrible start, but then they went on a tear for the next 25 games, and they're still in the top 10 in the league. They're still a contender, but they have to make. I think they need two. I think they need 1 to 2 defensemen and a forward. I tend to agree with you. Klingberg would be a great addition, no question about it. But it's the defense that they have to look after right away and get that looked after. Because, like Justin Hall, I don't know what's happened to this guy. This guy was the guy last year, not the guy last year, but certainly played a lot better than he's playing right now. And he sat out against Columbus as a healthy scratch. Sandin, for some reason, didn't play against Montreal, if that's cap maneuvering, I guess. But Justin Hall's lost it. He has totally lost it. Him and Muzzin were a great shutdown pair last year. Barry and Riley, of course, they're number one pair, no question about it. Dermott still hasn't gotten any better, but he's okay as a 5'6". Sandin's okay as a 4'5'6". Liljegren's still learning the ropes, I think, but and then Lyubushkin comes in, and hopefully he can settle into that 3-4 role. But they need another defenseman, no question about it, and a stud defensive defenseman. That's what they really need.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know necessarily that Klingberg fits that bill, but he is certainly a versatile defenseman and would fit in on the power play, maybe help them spark that up a little more. Who knows? I mean, there's going to be options out there. And especially if Muzzin's on LTIR, which is unfortunate, they're going to have even more options. So we'll see. But you're right. I think Brody Riley is probably going to be sticking together no matter what. And from there on down, they've got some shuffling that they're going to have to figure out. It'll be interesting. I want to ask you a little bit too, just about your impressions of these ongoing baseball negotiations. This is such a joke. Major League Baseball locked the players out. Keep in mind here, the players didn't go on strike. The league locked them out in December. The league and the owners took that stance. They didn't come to the negotiating table for almost 2 months. And now, after a week of actually sitting down and going face to face, the league goes, if there's no deal by this coming Monday, February 28th, we're going to cancel games. It's a joke.
The whole baseball negotiation. I'm down here with three guys. We were talking about baseball. One of the guys is 60-something years old, and he's like, baseball's dying. Baseball's got to do something to get going. And my biggest problem with baseball, and I've said it before to you, is the games are too long, and I'm not interested. I get bored, and I don't want to go to a game because I don't want to sit there for 4.5 hours and watch a baseball game. But these negotiations are just like, it all goes hand in hand with the way the league is going, the way it's gotten out of control on the diamond, and now the way it's out of control in the front office. These guys locking guys out, like look at all the money they spent before they locked them out. Like it just doesn't make sense at all. Has baseball ever lost a game due to a lockout? I think the answer is no.
Not a lockout. I mean, there strikes on the player side is where we've lost games before, and it's just embarrassing. And I agree, Clarkey, like it does go hand in hand, because while I am gung-ho about baseball and I never used to be, and I'm probably becoming a big fan of it at a weird time where, I don't know that there's ever been as many complaints about the way the game is played than there are now. You're right. And Joey Gallo had comments the other day about the shift, and in the very least, not allowing infielders to step out into the outfield before a pitch is thrown. Like, I agree with that. If you're not going to outright ban the shift, I mean, don't let the shortstop and the second baseman back up into the green. Like, that would do something, at least in terms of getting bloopers over guys' heads and getting some more infield hits, because, and it's weird because the game, we talk all the time, Clarkey, about how it's gone to a power or nothing batting approach. That, guys that hit for average are not as celebrated anymore as the guys that can swing and hit 35, 40 home runs, but they bat 230 like Joey Gallo. And every time that, there's a bunch of free agents that are coming up that are power hitters, baseball allegedly screws around with the balls and makes them, less hittable in terms of distance for home runs. They did the same thing allegedly with pitchers. There's all these crazy rumors about what the league does to try and limit the effectiveness of pending free agents, no matter the position. I just think that this is so embarrassing on every level. And your friend is right. Baseball is dying. And we've talked about this before. They have a unique opportunity. There's so much good young talent with great personality, and they are going to potentially ruin that doing stuff like this, Clarkey.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Ryan. I think we better wrap it up pretty soon here, but I think my phone is overheating. Sorry to tell you that, but it's just baseball. It's like, the guys in charge and the owners and everyone. It's like, get your act together. I don't think they'll ever get it together. So just get used to it. Quit getting mad about it, because it's just the way it's going to be until these guys are gone. Like, it hasn't gotten any better, and I don't see it getting any better. I really don't.
I completely agree, man. I think it's embarrassing, and I don't know. I'm just hoping they can come to a deal. I want to see baseball, and after the everything that we've gone through in terms of COVID and having a half season in 2020 when they could have played way more than they did, this would be such a mistake on both sides' part. But I mean, again, the onus is on the owners here. They're the ones that took the step and went into a lockout. This is their dance, and they better put their ballet shoes on and show up and do some twirls here, because I'm getting sick and tired of reading about, not paying minor leaguers and slashing this and slashing that when they're all getting richer. I'm just fed up with it. The beers aren't going to be cheaper when we go back to the parks, Clarkey. I don't want to hear it from the owner's side. All right, buddy. Well, we'll let you go. Enjoy the weather. And it was great to catch up with you. Thanks for doing this. And we'll hope to have you back here safely real soon, my friend.
I'll be back next week for the show. So we'll see you then.
Well, thanks to our buddy Clarkey for joining us from his beautiful vacation. Hopefully he's enjoying the beach down there. I'm sure he is. Obviously, this is not a political show. I'm probably the least big fan of politics of just about anybody you'll meet. I really don't have time for them. But unfortunately, right now, the world of politics and some of the things that are going on in Europe right now are bleeding into the sports world. And this is a sports show, and we're going to discuss that. Obviously, I don't know how you haven't heard about it by now. Russia has invaded the Ukraine. It's a pretty sad situation. Obviously, our thoughts are with everybody over there. I mean, the videos and some of the stuff you're seeing out of the country are pretty horrific right now. And, that it's affecting the sports world. Obviously, there's a lot to be said for a number of NHL players, not just them, but really any prominent Russian athlete. But we talk about hockey a lot on this show. And there's a guy over my right shoulder here for our viewers, Alex Ovechkin. I mean, you're not going to find a bigger fan of that guy than me. Obviously, he's been vocal over the years about his support for Vladimir Putin. As we record this, it's Thursday, the 24th of February. Tonight, the Capitals are going to be in New York to take on the Rangers. Ovi's going to not be made available before the game, but he will answer questions after the game, apparently. And you can bet every single one of them is not going to be on the outcome of the game. It's going to be about Vladimir Putin and his home country. And there's a lot to be said. I'm seeing a lot of friends of mine and different people across, the hockey world tweeting a lot about, Ovi's very vocal support of Vladimir Putin, including the last Russian election, where Ovi kind of started a website. Like he had a website go live, something like putinteam.ru or something, whatever it was. Like he put his voice behind Putin for re-election, which he of course got, and has been vocal about his friendship with Vladimir Putin over the years. Same thing with Yevgeny Malkin and a number of other, prominent Russian athletes. Ilya Kovalchuk, former NHLer, always vocal behind Vladimir Putin. And there's a lot to be said and a lot of merit, in my opinion, to the criticism of the Great Eight and some of his countrymen in terms of supporting this guy that, is obviously doing some very damning things right now. The situation in Europe and really across the world right now, because of these aggressions, I'll call them, from Russia, are not good. And I would expect that a lot of these guys are going to get taken to task over this, and rightly so. I will, it's hard, obviously. I'm a huge Caps fan. I love Ovi. I've met him numerous times. He's a spectacular guy. I am going to try my best to maybe not make this sound like I'm defending him, because I don't think that the ways in which he's gone out and been so overly vocal for Vladimir Putin have been necessary over the years. And frankly, I think it's kind of disgusting. That's just me. I will say this, though. Really interesting thread here that I'll read you on Twitter from Rick Westhead, one of the best investigative reporters out there. I'll read you the tweet thread verbatim. And it starts like this from Rick Westhead of TSN. No doubt Washington Capitals are brainstorming with Alex Ovechkin on how to respond to questions about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ovechkin in 2017 started the social movement and website putinteam.ru, a website that helped rally support for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Ovechkin has said he's not a political person. Stephen Hall, the CIA's former station chief in Moscow, rejects that claim. Hall says, quote, this is a guy that formerly worked with the CIA. He says, quote, Ovechkin says, I'm not a political person, just proud to be Russian. That's just not how it works in Russia. The Putin team website does not seem to have been updated in several years. It used to have a peak of over 130,000 monthly visitors. That's now down to about 5,000. And Rick Westhead also basically stated from that former CIA agent that basically the difficulty with a guy like Ovechkin, at least in that they support Vladimir Putin or seem to throw a lot of support behind him. The difficulty that the CIA agent basically said was it's easy to criticize a guy like Ovechkin for being vocal for a guy like this. The issue is that government and the way that they operate, they know where, this is the CIA agent's quote. I'll read it. They know where Ovechkin's grandma lives. They know where his parents live. They know which bank accounts he has. They know where his money is stored. They know where his dacha, that's a cottage essentially in Russia. They know where he keeps his dacha. This is not easy for people that think that they're just throwing support behind a certain political party. That government knows where everybody's lives are. I'll say as well, right now, it was confirmed by sports reporters in Washington, Ovi's wife, his two kids, and his whole family are over in Russia right now. And his wife's family are all in Russia. And again, I'm not trying to make this sound like an excuse, because Ovi's gone out of his way when he hasn't had to over the years, along with other people from Russia that are athletes, to vocally support Vladimir Putin. I will say, though, that CIA agent is right. It is not like it is over here. Look what just happened. Again, guys, I hate this. I don't want to talk on this show about politics. This sucks. I don't want to be doing this. This is a sports show. I want to talk about spring training starting and the Leafs. And that's what I want to do. And we're going to do that next with our friend Dark Guy. But right now, this kind of intersects. And I do want to say that it's not like it is what we saw in Ottawa, where people can just show up for 3 weeks and take over a city. That stuff doesn't happen in Russia. You don't do stuff like that over there. If you do, they come down on people over there. Russia's government, they don't do unrest. They don't do this stuff. They don't do social freedoms and big marches in front of the Kremlin in Red Square. That stuff doesn't happen. You go to prison for that. So imagine just for a second, you're Ovechkin or Malkin or whoever, and your whole family's over there. The government has access to your houses, your property. They can just start seizing stuff. Like the CIA agent said, they know where this guy does his banking and has his finances tied up in. This is not a simple thing for Russian guys to speak out. And again, I really hope that doesn't sound like I'm making an excuse for my favorite player. And it just kind of does. I get that. But there is another side to the coin here. And I'll bring up, look what happened with Artemi Panarin, who you can say a lot about his support of certain political guys as well that are not exactly great. But when he came out, hockey fans, you'll remember this, I believe it was last year, Panarin came out vocally against Vladimir Putin and some of his policies and the way the Russian government operates. Within a day, there was a now widely known to be fabricated story about Panarin assaulting a young woman at a team hotel, I believe in Ukraine, maybe it was Latvia, when he was playing in the KHL. Within hours of him being vocal against Vladimir Putin, there was immediately a story from back in Russia circulating, oh, he assaulted this woman, by the way, back in 2015 or whatever it was. And I'm sure if people are familiar with that story, they'll remember that a bunch of his former teammates, Panarin's former teammates, came forward and said, that's categorically false. That never happened. Police over in, I believe it might have been Latvia, confirmed that that never happened. No one approached them with charges or a claim against Panarin. That's the type of stuff we're talking about here. And again, this isn't fun. Sports are supposed to be, ideally at their best, an escape from stuff like this. But given where we're at right now, we're going to be hearing, whether you're just a sports fan and you're like me, you don't really particularly like to pay attention to politics or not, you're going to be bombarded with this stuff watching sports. When you turn TSN or Sportsnet on, or this show, you're unfortunately going to be hearing about stuff like this because, you know, when stuff like war comes into the equation, it affects every aspect of life. And it's not just hockey. There have been very vocal letters written. Rick Westhead again covering this in the soccer world. Rick Westhead tweeting out that the soccer federations and the governments of, I believe it's Sweden. Yep, it's Sweden, Poland, and Denmark. Russia is scheduled to host the Polish men's national soccer team on March 24th in a World Cup qualifying match. If they win that game, they would go on to play either Sweden or Denmark in the next stage to qualify for the World Cup, and whoever won that second game would go on to the FIFA World Cup in Qatar, of all places. And Sweden, Denmark, and Poland today all put a joint statement out from their governments and soccer federations, all signed, saying we refuse to play in Russia. We will not play games there. UEFA, the European soccer federation that controls the Champions League, the highest quality club soccer tournament in the world, today officially pulled the Champions League final out of St. Petersburg. It was supposed to be hosted in St. Petersburg, Russia, at the end of May. And they have officially said that they've pulled it. They've not announced a new location. I'd imagine they put it maybe in England would be the easiest place to just throw it, in Wembley or something like that. Maybe Barcelona, who knows? But it won't be played in Russia. And FIFA typically have a weak response to this. They're basically just saying, we're not going to cancel games in Russia right now. We're going to see how things play out. I mean, FIFA, what? They're playing out. It's embarrassing that FIFA, probably the most corrupt organization on earth, ladies and gentlemen, are taking this weak-willed approach. Like, they just don't want to make Russia upset. They should be coming out and banning Russia from the World Cup. That's what needs to happen here. Russia should not be participating in any international sports tournaments for years. Years. They orchestrated one of the worst and most elaborate doping scandals of all time at Sochi, and they're just allowed to continue competing in the Olympics. Oh, well, they can't say they're Russia. I don't care. They shouldn't have been there. Within like a week of being in Beijing, that 15-year-old girl was taking illegal heart medication. Oh, she was allowed to go. That made me so mad. I remember a few years back, I believe it was 2018. It might have, no, it was 2014. Sweden, Nick Backstrom, Ovechkin's teammate, wasn't allowed to play in the gold medal game because he was taking this nasal spray that had an illegal substance in it. Nick Backstrom, Swedish guy, he can't play, but we find this young Russian girl, and I don't blame her. It's probably not her fault. She's taking an illegal well, she can skate. She can skate because she's from Russia, and we don't want to make Russia mad. It's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. I don't know where we go from here. It's also bleeding into the racing world. Reigning F1 champ Max Verstappen said today at F1 testing that they should pull out of the Russian Grand Prix. They should not race there. I completely agree. Because of the obvious moral ambiguity of it, and B, because that track sucks. The Russian Grand Prix is one of the worst F1 races on the calendar. That track is garbage. But bigger than that, so I'd be happy as an F1 fan, but bigger than that, I mean, you've got the most famous race car driver on the planet right now coming out and taking a pretty strong stance and saying, I don't want to race in Russia. I don't know, folks. I don't know where this is going. Obviously, we're thinking about Ukraine and the people over there. There's a strong Ukrainian, a lot of Ukrainian descendants and a strong Ukrainian community here in Canada. My girlfriend, her mom's family, Ukrainian. They all came over here. Her mom's family from Ukraine. Like this is terrible, and it's affecting the sports world. And I don't know where this is headed, but you can bet that if you're a sports fan, this is absolutely going to affect how sports proceed from here forward. Certainly at the international level. I'll say one last thing. I know a number of IIHF nations and different dignitaries are calling on the International Ice Hockey Federation to pull next year's World Juniors. And the following year, 2023, Russia is supposed to host the Men's Hockey World Championships. Many are calling for the IIHF to revoke those and take the 2022 World Juniors and the 2023 World Ice Hockey Championships out of Russia. And I completely agree. I hope this doesn't escalate into a worse situation. I'm sure that's not a unique stance. Selfishly, as a sports fan, I would like to hope this doesn't affect too many avenues of the thing that we all enjoy, but it already is. And based on what we're seeing right now, I just don't know how it's going to get better soon. So that's all I'll say about that. It's a tough situation, obviously, but we've just got to hope, I guess, that the powers that be do the right thing and that this situation can get resolved, because just on the whole, it just isn't fair. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to chat with our friend Dark Guy, Jason Maslakow, coming up next to talk about the Leafs and what he maybe sees coming down the pipe for the trade deadline, which gets closer and closer by the day. Stick with us here on Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. Welcome back to Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. Ryan Drury still here with you. We figured we'd be nice. We'd let Clarkey get back to his vacation. We're brought to you, as always, by our friends at Coolbet, the Listowel Squash Courts, Listowel Vision Care, and See the Game. And as promised, we are very happy to catch up with our friend of the show, the one, the only, Dart Guy, Jason Maslakow, on the show. It's great to see you, buddy. First of all, let me just say, you look fantastic. Like, are you on like some new regimen or something? Can you pass a tip along? The hair, like, you are looking sharp over there in the Leaf skier, brother.
I definitely appreciate that. And I guess the secret to the success would be eating better, a good young lady in my life, and maybe a activity.
Yes. That seems like a good setup for success, no doubt about it. I wonder as well, just as we kind of dig into the Leafs a little bit. I mean, Clarkey and I were talking about it and some of the concerns that he's had over the last little bit here. Obviously, heading into tonight as we record this, they're playing the Minnesota Wild, losers of 3 straight, and some frustrating losses, sure, but just your thoughts on what the team is like overall right now, and how concerned are you maybe with the goaltending situation, which has been a little concerning recently?
Well, I'll tell you, hard to knock Soup for the way he's been playing, just off the fact that his time in a Leafs uniform has been phenomenal. However, when we talk about, my concerns as a realistic hockey person, Jack Campbell has only played at an elite level for a very short period of time in what's been an 11, 12-year career so far. I definitely have some question marks. I actually put out on my Twitter the other day that, you know what would Marc-Andre Fleury look like in a Leafs uniform to back up Soup for a playoff run? Now, I get that, Marc-Andre Fleury doesn't have like the greatest track record of success. If I remember correctly, both his cups he won were as a backup. But he also has been a proven winner and has played well in the playoffs at times. To think about, a 3-team trade where the Leafs could possibly, get Chicago to ship Fleury to one team, they retain 50%, then they send them to Toronto, they retain 50%, somehow moving Mrazek in the process, I would feel a lot more comfortable than I do right now. That being said, if Soup can get back to the way he was playing for the first half of the season, the Leafs shouldn't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Fleury's going to be coming up in a number of markets. I know Washington has been rumored to be in on him. I'm sure a number of other teams are calling about him. And yeah, I mean, you would think that maybe a third team would need to be involved. But overall, yeah, you just never know what's going to happen. Jack Campbell, he's had great stretches. He's in the middle of a very tough stretch right now. And Mrazek, who has had a pretty uneven season, injury concerns, of course. Is he, a long-term piece there? I don't necessarily think so, but I wanted to play a little game with you as well, a bit of pick your poison, if you will. There's a lot of names flying around right now that the Leafs are potentially connected with, and the trade deadline, they've already been active, bringing in Lyubushkin and Carter Hutton for depth at the goaltending position. I'm going to throw 5 names your way, and I want you to tell me what your preference would be in terms of acquiring these players from first to least. So I'll throw the 5 names your way, and you can kind of break down your thought process for us, okay? The names are JT Miller, Max Domi, Travis Konechny. Those are the forwards. And then 2 defensemen on the market, John Klingberg and Mark Giordano. I'll let you take the floor. You tell me which of those 5 guys in order would you prefer the Leafs go and get, and why?
You pretty much just put it in order, and we'll start with JT Miller. Right now, he is my number 1 target to improve the Leafs front 6. For me, and I'm probably going to get lambasted once this airs, I would call Vancouver. I would offer them William Nylander for JT Miller straight up right now, done deal. The Leafs saved themselves $1 million in salary cap space. JT Miller comes in as a much more physical, much more engaged player that's scoring at a higher rate. I mean, yeah, Miller's 3 years older, but that's the benefit for the Vancouver Canucks. They take on a player that's got an extra year of control, that's 3 years younger. Miller comes to Toronto, has that heart that, and I'm sorry to say it, people were loving Nylander at the beginning of the year when he was scoring a whole bunch of goals. But you look at him playing now, and he's doing the same old avoid going into the corners, letting up on pucks to avoid getting hit. The only time I see him really skate for a puck is when he's got a chance to be on an odd man rush or have a breakaway. The kid's talented. I hate to keep bringing him up, but I would do JT Miller for Nylander right now and not even think twice. I believe the Leafs would be a significantly better team immediately.
Wow.
My second pick for out of the players you mentioned would be Travis Konechny. Travis Konechny should have been a Leaf.
Yeah, he should have.
He should have been a Leaf. In his draft year, I was sitting there watching the draft around my campfire up at my trailer. Had the bonfire going, watching the wobbly pops. And before the draft even started, my friends started asking me, who do you want? I said, I want Travis Konechny. So there's no way he's fallen to us, but that's who I want. And then I watched the pick go after pick go after pick go. And oh my God, Travis Konechny's available. It's our pick. What just happened here? Nice. And then we trade the pick away. I just think Travis Konechny is a guy that again, he plays with heart. He plays a little bit grittier. He's a guy that I think could slide into your top 6 and provide you with a boost maybe to the second power play unit, because, well, we're not going to tinker with our first power play unit that's been doing pretty well. So, yeah, Travis Konechny would be my second choice. I've always loved him ever since he was a kid. Wanted him in Toronto in his draft year. He should be here. I'd have no problem bringing him in. What I would give up to get him right now, that's a different story. But I don't think I'd be doing Nylander straight up. But that's this could be a 2-hour-long show when there's a Leafs game if I want to keep diving into it too much further. John Klingberg, all the talents in the world, but no, if I look at character and what I want for the playoffs, I would take Giordano as my next player, despite him being, Klingberg having much more of his career ahead of him. A lot more things to like about Klingberg offensively, but the Leafs' problem is not offense from the defense. We need some guys that are going to have some character and some leadership. We're going to come in willing to play a shutdown role and play tough, and I think Giordano fills that bill.
Yeah, he's certainly a guy that I don't see a scenario where Seattle doesn't move him. And, say what you want about the expansion draft and the different approach. Like, they really bungled that draft up. Like, there are a lot of players when you look back that they could have had instead. And I think that their team is so far away from being in a Vegas situation that there is no point in them retaining a guy like Gio, who I think could really, really help a team, particularly a team like Toronto, with the well-roundedness of his game. And I mean, yeah, is Klingberg more of an offensively inclined guy who, let's be fair, did go to a Stanley Cup final a couple years ago and had a very good playoff that year, but certainly a bit more offensively inclined. It's not like Mark Giordano can't play on the power play. We've seen this guy put up big numbers. Like, he's a really, really good player. And then, of course, Max Domi on that list. I don't know how interested you'd be in bringing the younger Domi in. Would he be more at the bottom with Klingberg then?
He's not even on my radar.
Really? Yeah, you wouldn't take him at all, eh? Like, no use for that?
Oh, no use for him whatsoever.
Why not?
I don't think his last few years have shown that he perhaps has the pedigree, want and desire to be a Toronto Maple Leaf or to do what it takes to win. So just not a huge fan of Max. I've seen it floating around on social media for years now. Oh, how great would it be to bring him in? And I don't think you're going to get your bang for your buck with a guy like Max Domi. I think there's a whole slew of players that would probably be a better fit than him. So he's not even on my radar personally.
Hey, fair enough. That's the great thing about sports. We've got different opinions on things. I agree. I don't know how much that he would necessarily help the Leafs. I already think they have a ton of guys that kind of fit his bill. A smaller player that, has some speed, but doesn't necessarily get involved in the dirty areas. And that's something that they're going to need. I wonder as well, just your opinion on what's been a pretty unfortunate week for Leaf fans in terms of injuries and really health concerns. Of course, Jake Muzzin suffering another scary concussion, which is just awful to see. He's such a competitor. You can really tell he loves being a Leaf, and he goes down. And then, of course, the really scary news about Rodion Amirov, who has a brain tumor, the young Russian prospect over in Russia. And he seems to be, in a positive headspace, and the team sent him a nice gesture today with everybody wishing him well and whatnot. But some tough news for Leaf fans on the immediate roster and the future of the roster, Jason.
Yeah, Amirov is definitely a tough one, being he's so young and future was looking so bright. I actually had a friend not long ago have surgery to remove a brain tumor and is doing very well and recovering. But, the prognosis for him to maybe ever get back on the ice, even in a scenario where it's just playing, men's league is very bleak. Putting things into perspective as a Leafs fan, we might be losing, a great prospect who may never well play the game again. But the more important thing is, let's hope he is able to battle this and defeat it and have a long and healthy life. As far as Jake Muzzin's concerned, again, like you said, another concussion for Jake is very concerning. especially at this stage in his career. It could be a scenario where, obviously, first of all, I hope for a full and healthy recovery as well. I'd love to see him back on the blue line. And if that is going to be the scenario, this could almost be a blessing in disguise for the Toronto Maple Leafs, where we can bury his $5.625 million remaining on the LTIR, have him come back in the playoffs fully healthy, fully rested, and in the meantime, pull a Tampa Bay and pick up somebody like they did when they buried Kucherov. Obviously, it's very concerning, and I'm a Jake Muzzin fan. I think he's unjustly criticized quite often, and I think what he brings to the Leafs is very important for a long playoff run. So obviously, first and foremost, I hope he's healthy and everything like that. But if it's a scenario where he can come back and we can use this and Dubas can use it to his advantage, they have to, and they have to start getting creative and thinking outside the box, because, as we kind of touched on a little bit, when I'm looking at this Leafs team going into the playoffs, I still think we're missing some stuff. Okay, so if we can flip Mrazek into somebody like Fleury, finding a way to make that work cap-wise, which shouldn't be too difficult, might cost you a second or third round pick to get that third team involved to have to retain another 50%. If you're able to, looking at Chicago, do you simply take Mrazek? Well, he's a lot younger than Fleury and gives you an option that's under control for a couple of years. I don't know how much more they would really be wanting or needing. Obviously, they're going to want something, but you got to make a move like that. If Muzzin is able to come back in the playoffs and you're able to pick up another player with his $5.65 million that's going to be available, that's your Mark Giordano, your next tough defenseman, or whatever the case may be. And then you look at, do I want, honestly, and I'm going to bring it up again, do I want JT Miller or William Nylander for a playoff run? I want JT Miller. Plain and simple. So if you look at, in the next week or two, being able to swap a Nylander for a JT Miller, bring in Marc-Andre Fleury, and suddenly, whether it be a Giordano, a Sherratt from Montreal, you suddenly have a little bit of a different looking, different feel team to it that, is instantly a little bit tougher and a little more perhaps reliable, playoff weathered in people like Giordano and Fleury. So I think Dubas has got to get busy, and I think the time is now. And if it costs you a couple picks or a couple prospects, well, that's the price you pay for doing business in the NHL today.
It certainly is. And I mean, the way the salary cap is, there's not really much more ways that you can find that wiggle room, right? And I'll say this in your defense, I guess, if you will, I'm sure, there'll be people that don't really like your Nylander for Miller take. I will say this, obviously the Leafs would save a bit of money right now, and keep in mind, Vancouver might not hate that, because let's keep in mind that Brock Besser is a UFA, and he's going to get a pretty significant pay bump. He makes around $6 million already. He's probably going to be looking in that $7-8 million range. And if they lose JT Miller, who's a free agent anyway, and they bring in Nylander potentially, who has some years of control left, that might ease their decision-making a little bit in terms of what they do on the Brock Besser front, knowing that they would still have a young, talented Swede to pair up with Elias Pettersson for a couple of years. I don't necessarily think that Vancouver should hate that proposal. So I'll say that in your defense of that move, Jason. The
Elias Pettersson and William Nylander combination could be very appealing, and I mean that's one of the main reasons why I was thinking about it. So.
Hey, they've had success with pairs of Swedes out there before. I don't know if anybody remembers.
What were their names? Sedins or something like that?
I've heard of them. It'll be interesting. Now, I want to ask you as well, because obviously we should be in terms of baseball, and I got my Jays hat. we should be talking about pitchers and catchers reporting, but unfortunately, we're still in this stupid lockout, and I don't want to dig again into the details of that because I'll get upset, but there are rumors floating around, Mr. Maslakow, that Freddie Freeman might not be re-signing with the reigning World Series champion Atlanta Braves. And there's been an awful lot of chatter that maybe the Jays could be in play for him. Now, I'm not going to say don't sign a good player. I don't really understand it from a Jays perspective outside of a year. But what are your thoughts on that front?
Well, Freddie Freeman has been tied to the Blue Jays, I think, for considerably longer than just now. Going back into last year, there was some talk about it, and even I think last offseason there was some talk about it. If Freddie Freeman wants to come to Toronto, you find a way to make it work and make everybody happy. That's just basically the bottom line. I know we've got Vlad, right? I mean, but I'm pretty sure Vlad would really want the Blue Jays to add a guy like Freddie Freeman if they could. So.
Yeah, and that's the tough part of the discussion, right? Is Vlad plays first base, Freddie's a first baseman. You're not going to take a veteran guy in Freddie and shift him over to third. We all assume Kevin Biggio will shift back over to second with the now departed Texas Ranger Marcus Semien. That makes me sick to say Texas Ranger Marcus Semien. But yeah, you're not going to shift Freddie over to third. Vlad, I don't love the way he looked in his brief stint at third in the major leagues, and he acquitted himself. I mean, he's not going to win a Gold Glove anytime soon, but he acquitted himself pretty well at first base. So if you bring Freddie in, what does that do to Vlad? One of them would obviously DH. Would Freddie be okay just basically DHing? I don't know that you want the younger guy in Vlad DHing too much. Yeah, it would create an interesting little dichotomy on the roster, but it's an interesting conversation.
Well, truth be told, when you look at the DH situation, again, you find a way to make it work. I don't think you're really necessarily stepping on any toes too much if you start trying to figure out how you're going to do a 60-40 split at first base DH. I mean, it only stands to benefit both players, not being on the field as much, the way I see it. Each one of them could be swapping almost 50-50 or 60-40 between first and DH. Should argumentatively keep them both healthy and fresh.
Yeah, that's certainly what the argument would be for proponents of it. I mean, hey, Freddie Freeman's an unbelievable player. He's one of the top first basemen and top hitters in the league. I mean, having that in your lineup is not going to hurt you at the end of the day. I certainly don't think. Jason, before we let you go, obviously earlier we talked a lot on the show just about the unfortunate things going on overseas with the invasion of Ukraine and how it's already starting to affect the world of sports. The Champions League final's been pulled out of Russia. A number of soccer organizations are refusing to play Russia in World Cup qualifiers. The IIHF, there are people calling on them to rip the World Juniors next year and the Men's World Hockey Championships in 2023 away from Russia. Just your opinion on what's going on sport-wise with, overall this human tragedy that we're all witnessing.
Well, quickly on my father's side of the family, my grandmother was from Kiev, Ukraine. My grandfather was from Belarus. So, my heart most wholeheartedly goes out to the Ukrainian nation and the people. And, it kind of hits home a little bit to think that, if my grandparents, maybe a little bit being dramatic, but, if my grandparents don't come over, instead of sitting here talking to you, maybe I'm preparing for war right now. So it's unfortunate to see what's going on. May God be with everybody in the Ukraine. And it's just a matter of if ripping everything away from Russia, sporting wise, is I think it's what you got to do. From what I've seen and what I've heard, there's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason that makes any sense to what's happening over there right now. Yeah. So take it all, take it away from them, and call it a day. And like I said, there's more than sports at play right now, and that's where my heart is.
I completely agree, man. Well said. And yeah, it's an unfortunate situation that, unfortunately is dominating our lives in the headlines right now. But selfishly, it was nice to chat some sports with you. We're glad you're doing well. You're looking great. And I'm going to come visit you soon in the wonderful city of London. We'll try and forget some of these troubles that we've had to unfortunately face. All right, buddy. We really appreciate you doing this. Thanks so much to Mr. Dark Eye, Jason Maslakow. Remember, he's also the head scout for the Collingwood Blues Junior A team. We know you're a busy guy, and we really appreciate this, buddy. Get back to the Leaf game.
Sounds good. And tell Clarkey I said hi. Sorry I missed him this time.
I certainly will, my friend. He'll be happy to hear that down on vacation. All right, that's it from us this week here at Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. Remember, on Friday nights at 8, Sunday nights at 9, you can catch us on Whiteman TV. That is Channel 6 for Whiteman subscribers. We debut on YouTube at 9 p.m. on Friday nights. You can follow us on social media at Instigating Pod. Find this podcast on all the best podcast apps, including Spotify and Apple Podcast. And just remember, folks, sports, we all love it. It's a lot of fun, but definitely if you can support Ukraine and the people over there if you can. There's obviously a lot of different donation sites and fundraisers being set up. It's interesting to note, like Jason said, with his family ties, Canada has the third highest population of Ukrainians of anywhere in the world, behind Russia and the Ukraine. So if you can do something to help out that community, they would sure appreciate it right now. All right, everybody, we'll be back next week.